Hoffman, for those of you who don't know, and today I want to just inform you more about my topic of standardized testing and the negative impacts that it has on not only teachers but students as well in the United States and Sweden. So I want to start off with kind of why this is personally related to myself, which is we all have grown up taking so many standardized tests. We started in the 3rd grade with the OAAs, and when I was in 3rd grade, I know they really emphasized these. They sent home letters saying that we needed to eat a healthy dinner the night before, we needed to get this much sleep, we needed to do this and that. So a lot of people kind of suffer from test anxiety, and I feel like I've always been one of those people because no matter how well I did in classes, which I was always someone who got good grades and did their homework, but tests were something that I just never was really good with. So then you move on in your schooling and go to high school where you complete the OGT, and if you can't pass this one standardized test, you can't graduate. And then you move on to the ACT, where if you can't get a good enough score, you might not be able to get into the college that you want to. And then when you think you're done with OAAs, I went into the standardized test. You go into the education department where I found out that I had to take OAEs, which are another standardized test just to be qualified to teach students. So not only did I kind of relate to it in that aspect, but I'm also, as I mentioned, in the education department where I hope to help children succeed, and that's kind of why I chose standardized testing. And then I chose Sweden because when I was a senior in high school, I had a foreign exchange student in my class from Sweden who my friends and I became very close with. So I thought it would be nice to have kind of an inside person who not only has been in the Swedish schooling system and found those assessments, but has also been in an American schooling system where she actually had to take the OGT to graduate from our high school, which I was kind of surprised by because obviously they don't learn the same things that we do in Sweden, so how can they take a test based on what we learn in Ohio? And then when I began my lit review, I thought it was going to be a very easy topic to talk about and to research, but I kind of found that it was too broad and that I needed to narrow it, because I was kind of looking at it holistically in the aspect of how do we assess children and what's good and bad about it, but I realized that I needed to narrow it and talk about the negative aspects of that standardized test has on teachers and students. And I also want to look at the accountability factor, because standardized tests are something that teachers are being held accountable for. Many teachers are coming with negative repercussions because their students aren't passing these tests. So according to the National Center for Fair and Open Testing, they said that student test results can't reliably, validly, or fairly be used to judge our educators. And this is where the idea of teaching to the test comes from. So if you were a teacher and they told you that you could take a pay cut or you could lose your job because your students aren't passing a test, you're going to have those students be able to take the test whether they can remember the information afterwards or not. And then as far as my interviews go, I haven't really administered any formal interviews, but I am going to talk to Astrid and her mom, dad, and sister this weekend, which is the foreign exchange student I know from Sweden. Astrid and her sister, like I said, have both been foreign exchange students in America, so I think it'll be interesting to see how they can compare Sweden and America, especially because Astrid was in Ohio and her sister is in North Dakota, so it'll be interesting to see as well the comparison between two different states in the United States. And then Astrid's mom is a professor at one of the universities in Sweden, so I think it'll be interesting to see how she feels about assessing students in her country. And then, as Autumn mentioned in her presentation, I'm also going to try to interview our professor, Dr. Daly, who's a psychology professor here, because she does not put much emphasis on testing whatsoever. She actually allows you to retake tests, so that kind of just shows that she wants you to be able to learn the information, not just put it on a piece of paper for one test. Where I'm headed next would be to obviously conduct more interviews And I would like to look further into Sweden assessments in early childhood, because I have a lot about the secondary schooling, but I have a lot for the United States as far as early childhood goes, so I want to be able to compare them better. Then I also want to be able to find data about the time that students spend taking tests in Sweden, because I found something like that for the United States, and I want to be able to compare the two. As far as looking at my research, it's kind of made me a better student, because I can take a broad topic and narrow it into what I want to actually research. And as a future educator, it taught me what not to do when assessing my students in the future. And then lastly, I'd like to share the quote with you by William G. Spady, who said that all students can learn and succeed, but not on the same day and not in the same way. So I just kind of thought that this really related to my research, because standardized tests are an important thing. It's very important to assess children, but everyone doesn't learn